Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I am pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, very busy, moving house and all of that stuff. So I've only watched one thing, but it was a good thing. So looking forward to talking about it. But do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'll start with Old Henry.
Old Henry, the oldest movie.
Yes. So it's a couple of years old.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that when it came out, I was desperately trying to watch it, find it, and it just didn't seem to appear anywhere. And then it completely left my head. I couldn't find it. And then the other day I saw it and thought, I want to watch that. So it's taken me a while, but, there it is. Directed by, this is good. Pozzi Ponsaroli. I think that's
right.
Starring Tim Blake Nelson and Stephen Dorff. So basically, you're introduced to, old Henry, who lives on a farm with his young son, sort of teenage son, and the next farm over is his brother-in-law. His wife has died at some point, and they're just, they're struggling. It looks like they're struggling to, make ends meet. The boy is desperate to sort of, grow up and be a man, and he wants to go off and learn how to shoot and do all that sort of stuff. And old Henry, doesn't. He comes across as a very sort of mean dad, but he's not a mean dad. He's trying to raise his son right and not be, a wrong one. Sort of meanwhile, there's some guys escaping from some sheriffs, as it were. But with Stephen Dorff is the sheriff, and they capture this guy and torture him and then basically kill him for some information. While old Henry and his son are out, sort of, I don't remember what they're doing, but they come across a body and a bag full of money. Right. So no, it's actually just Henry comes across it actually. And first of all, he's like, I love it. He goes over to this body. He turns it over. It's like, it's not actually a body. He's still alive, but he's like,
it will be a body if we wait a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And he finds this bag, and it's just completely full of money. And he literally gets up and goes, "Nope," and walks away. It's like, yep, nope. I'm not. But he doesn't. He goes back. And he takes the bag of money and the stranger back to his home and sort of does his best to sort of repair the wound and all that sort of stuff. And then Stephen Dorff turns up at with his guys and says, "Oh, this guy's dangerous, and have you seen him?" And he's like, "Nope." Denies he's seen him and all that sort of stuff. And basically, not really spoiling it, because the name on the wife's grave is McClarty. So you know who Henry McClarty is?
Yeah,
exactly. That's the kind of the thing. It's like he obviously he's gone and survived.
Yeah,
and gone back to an old alias. It's like, why would you go back to an old alias? Why wouldn't you use another name?
Yeah.
But anyway, so for those who don't know, Henry McCarthy, or William H. Bonney, is Billy the Kid. So this basically saying he survived the shooting thing, and he's basically moved to Oklahoma with his and found a wife, got married, and he's been living, as a farmer all this time. Obviously, his son doesn't know who he is.
No,
the brother-in-law clearly does. But and basically from there it becomes a sort of like a siege, almost like a siege movie, with them trying to get the money back and kill the guy that he's got staying with him, and then realizing who he is. And I really liked it. It's a very basic movie. There's no thrill. There's no sort of thrillage or anything sort of over the top. It's a very sort of, I'm not saying bog standard makes it sound awful, but
there's nothing wrong with a
bolts.
simple story, though. As
Exactly.
we've said so many times before, as long as it's well told,
yes,
a simple story is fine.
Yeah, it really is. It's a very simple, and they do a very good job of. I mean, the thing is it's kind of obvious from the beginning who he is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
well,
they sort of,
you said that like it wasn't much of a spoiler earlier, so I kind of assumed it was like, well, as soon as you start this movie, you're pretty much going to know who it is anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they do a very good job. They sort of leave these like nice sort of, I guess if you don't know, there was a couple of sort of hints, like the fact that he's got this tooth that sort of sticks out, which you see on an old on the picture that is of Billy the Kid. He wasn't a terribly handsome chap.
No.
Let's put it this way: he was no Emilio Estevez.
No. I was gonna say Emilio Estevez is. That's probably a lot of people's image of Billy. Certainly a certain generation. I should say. That's their image of Billy the Kid, and it's rather misleading.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a bigger Billy the Kid movie since then, has there? Really?
I don't know whether we're just being biased, but I'm not aware of one that was bigger.
I mean, that's not to say that there haven't been Billy the Kid movies.
Oh no, there's been loads,
loads of them since then.
Yeah.
But I don't think
it's the last big one. Well, the thing is, westerns went through a phase of being very unpopular, so that is kind of an outlier. So yeah, you're probably right.
It's directed very nuts and bolts, very sort of the really sort of nice workman like Nelson. Tim Blake Nelson's a really good actor that you only ever really see in sort of almost great supporting roles. It's not very often that he's front and center, and he's really good as this sort of very gruff sort of old guy who clearly has a past, and and is trying to stop his son from becoming what he was.
Yeah.
And Stephen Dorff, who I haven't seen in a while, and recently I've seen a couple of things with him. I watched the third season of oh my good lord, the true crime series.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't a big fan of the third season, but he was really good in it. And I'd actually forgotten that he's actually quite a good actor.
You
sort of, I don't know why I've forgotten that he's actually quite good, because he's he is, but
yeah, he's fine.
I mean he's just basically playing the sort of villain, so he just gets to sort of chew a bit of scenery and be a bit snarly, which is good.
Which is fine, yeah,
which is really good. Tracy Aitkins is in it, who's like a country singer. He's huge. I did not realize how big that dude is. I'm not sure I've seen him in anything else, but he's a really big guy. I really enjoyed it. It's not sort of some sort of big epic, or it's not something like the Unforgiven or that or flashy, or
sure.
It's just a very, very well done, enjoyable Western that I can highly recommend. The kid's quite cool as well. Actually. Gavin Lewis, who plays the kid, he was quite cool as well. Which he's got the sort of all he has to do is be a whiny, teenager really, but that he does it pretty well. It's not going to win any awards or anything, but
sure.
He's not annoying enough that he's annoying enough that you don't want to kill him. That he's quite good. It's like I said, it's just a very well made Western, which is rare these days, and I really enjoyed it. It's short, it's well made, just a great acted movie, which.
Well, it's one of those things that we've commented on. We've commented on in when we've done westerns. I was just thinking about this. We had some comments on our Open Range episode
Oh yeah.
And I didn't notice them until the other day. It was about a month ago someone commented on it, but that video is like 4 years old now, but it was so funny. The comments were amazing. The comment was, "You talk too much, get on with the movie. Boring, boring, so boring."
Okay.
like they kept commenting that, so like every like few minutes they were like, "Boring, it's still boring." I'm like, but you're still watching it. And also it's like, it's 4 years old. I don't even remember what I said during that. And also, have you never listened to us before? This is all we do, is talk shit through movies. It takes us hours to get through movies. That's how we do it. But anyway, we said during our open range review, and we've said during other Western reviews, like, you know, we're big fans of Westerns, and you don't get many these days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice, you know. It's just always lovely to get a decent Western. I'm always on board with a good Western.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a period that was kind of done to death for a while, and then was completely ignored. Like, once the 70s were over and you got into the early 80s, it was like, yeah, that's that. But it's such an expansive period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always
a very
always
short
love.
period of time as well. I think that's the
But
thing
a lot
about
happened in a very short
West
period of time.
It was a very short period of time, and I think that's why some people are very confused about Westerns, because it's like, well, it was a short period of time, not much really happened. It's like a lot happened.
Yeah, loads happened.
And, you know, it was just that it's sure. It's a big myth. You know, it's one of those.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. A lot of it is the mythology of the cowboy is very much so.
You know, we know that, but
you still enjoy them.
That's the thing. It makes for great movies. You know, the idea of you know, frontier justice and you know, the usually, not always, but usually good, you know, the white hats winning over the black hats. It's
of course,
it's, you know, it's kind of almost wish fulfillment in some ways. So, you know, and this is a very good example of you know, very understated Western. It's just some guys turn up, fuck up some guy's life, and you know, and that's it. It's really good. I've really enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really good. Since I've only watched one movie, do you want to do another, and then I'll
sure. So I will go with. Let's go with Past Lives.
Past Lives. Go for it. This one I've not heard anything about. So.
Yeah, so this is on Netflix at the moment. It's directed by Celine Song, starring Greta Lee, Tao Young, and John Magaro.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, so you've got Nora and Hae Sung, who were sort of 30 years ago or 20 odd years ago, were two young people in Korea, and they were, you know, kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend when they were kids. You know, they were these kids, and they sort of hung around together. And you know, she would. there's a really great bit at the beginning. They're sort of walking along, and she's crying, and he's just sort of, you know, walking along next to her and letting her cry and stuff. And then she's crying because she became second place to him in a test.
Right.
And she's always first, and this is the first time he's ever come first.
This is the first time she's experiencing a loss at something.
Yeah, and he's like, you do realise that, you know,
I do this every time.
Exactly. This is the first time I've ever come in first, and you're crying because you came in second. You realise that this, and she's like, you know, okay. What then happens is Nora's mother and father, who her father's a movie maker. He's a movie maker, and her mother's I think her mother's a photographer, and they want to sort of move to. They decide to emigrate. So that's what they do. They pack up, they go, and then, you know, her real name isn't Nora. It's, you know, that's the name she chose for herself when she moved to the States.
Yeah.
So you then basically, you know, after the sort of, you know, when they were kids, they went on this one day, and, you know, they were it's kind of almost inseparable and stuff. And then it's like, yeah, obviously they've gone away. It's years later, and Haesung never really got over her, and they sort of Nora is sort of on the phone to her mum, and they're sort of like looking up people that they used to know.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I should look up this, Haesung and see what he's like. And she looks him up, and it turns out that he on a message, one of her father's message boards, he put a message on looking for her a couple of months ago. And obviously, he didn't get to her, but
yeah,
he said, hey, do you remember me, sort of thing. So they start talking, and they're in these sort of weird positions where she's at this sort of moment in her career where she's writing, and she's going to go on this sort of like retreat, and he is an engineering student, and he's going to go to China and sort of learn. He wants to sort of learn Chinese and sort of do this, and they sort of they talk for a bit, and then she sort of realizes that they're kind of sort of becoming obsessed with each other, and she sort of says, okay, well, I don't think we should speak for a bit.
Sure.
And so they don't speak for a couple of years. Meanwhile, like they get back to, I think 12 years late pass, and they speak again.
Right.
And she's now married, and he's still not, and he's had a girlfriend, but now they're not together and stuff. And it's he comes over for a visit, and there's this weird thing, and the movie opens with like a scene in a bar, and there's her husband and him, and they're sort of facing each other talking, and the husband's sort of looking all embarrassed and sort of thing, and you don't know who they are at this point, but you're sort of like these two bar patrons, and one of them says, hey, what do you think their relationship is? And it's like, oh, I think that's brother and sister and a husband. It's like, really? I see it as this. And that you do that thing where if I don't know whether you've ever done it, I've done it. You're in a bar or something, you see some people and you go, hey, what's the deal with those people? What do you think they are?
Dude, I used to work as a DJ.
Yeah, exactly.
All I ever used to do was watch people and be like, what's going on there?
Yeah. And sometimes you just come up with.
Because if you hadn't figured it out at the start of the night, by the end of the night when they're drunk, So you can kind of make your assumptions early on and then see how it plays out.
Yeah. So, and she looks like, basically she then turns and looks right at the screen. It's a really nice little song. So it's from what I can gather.
And God, you used to be a barman. You must have done this.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely. All the time. It's one of those. It's a great way of passing time.
Oh yeah, absolutely is. Yes. 100%. I think I'd go crazy if I didn't do that.
Yeah. So from what I can gather, the director basically wrote this after she had a real life situation like this. She's got her husband, who is a white guy, and a sort of a past boyfriend from Korea when she was younger, and she thought, hey, this would make a really good movie. So that's what she did, and it very much reminded me of Wong Kar-wai movies.
Okay.
Nice sort of mood for lovey type.
Uh-huh.
Sort of, not as sort of stylish or sort of not as good as those movies. Mood for Love is one of the best movies ever made. But it's very sort of quiet, and there's there were scenes where literally you're just looking at these people, and there's no dialogue, there's no music. It's just them sort of sat there quietly doing nothing, or just sort of surviving, living their lives and stuff. And there are just scenes of beautiful stillness, of just two people stood on a street looking at each other, wondering about their lives and where they are, and what could have been and what may be. And I really loved it. It's not going to be for everyone, because I don't want to say it's an art movie, but it's not sort of your standard like love story or you
Yeah.
know rom-com or anything like that. It's just this really beautifully made movie that just sort of kind of ambles along, and it's sort of it's slow, but it was never boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just takes its time with its people, and I mean there are these. She's got a really good eye. There's just some great shots. They're just walking, through this park, and they just walk behind a bush and they're just talking. You didn't see them for a couple of seconds of just dialogue as they're walking through this bush, and you don't see them at all. And then they like emerge. It's like wow, that's she. I think brave to do that. Of just have this talking and just moving along, and that and there's a really sort of nice idea that I like was that the way I saw that what the director wanted was whenever they're walking along, she is usually walking left to right, and then when they're together, they walk right to left. Like it's like that they're going backwards,
right,
through their their history and stuff. And I thought that was a really nice sort of touch. I really like what they did with that. And there's some. I mean, sometimes the Korean guy comes across. He's got these like really weird brooding looks and stuff, and he sort of stood there and you think, God, he's got serial killer written all over him, and he's not.
He's just got that look. Some people have that unfortunate look about them. You're like, you look like a serial killer.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that he's sort of, he's obsessed with her, and he's, not, in no way a dangerous sort of, he's not going to do anything awful or anything. But sometimes you sort of see him, and he's sort of stood there like with this brooding expression on his face, and you just think, God, that guy just looks like he's going to murder everything. I think this is Celia Song's first movie. She's worked on other things like she worked on Wheel of Time, which we won't hold that against her.
I always think with big properties like that, if you're an actor or an actress and Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings or whatever is like your favorite book of all time, and then someone's like, do you want to be in the movie or the series? You'd be like, oh my God, yes. So you can't really blame people for
no, absolutely not.
They don't know. And also sometimes I think people, actors and actresses, they do scenes in isolation. They don't see that product, The bits they're doing, they may think are fine. I haven't actually seen Wheel of Time, by the way, so I have no idea.
It's
but I've never read the books, so I
see. The thing is I'm not the biggest fan of the books.
I've heard quite a lot of criticism about the books as well. I know people that are critical of the books, and then I know people that absolutely love the books.
Yeah, my brother-in-law, for instance, it's like his favorite books.
Yeah.
Like, he's read them multiple times. He really loves them.
Like I say to some friends, like, oh, should I read that? And they're like, oh my God, yes, it's the most important thing ever.
Yeah.
And then I'll speak to another friend and like, nah, they're all right.
Yeah, it's all a choice thing, but I could see when I read the first couple of books.
Okay.
And I know enough to go, oh, this is bad.
Right, yeah.
They've just changed so much.
That's a shame.
And unnecessarily so. They didn't need to change things. It's really bad. So and I don't imagine she had a lot to do with that.
Sure.
Sort of
but
stuff.
she's great here anyway. So
but this I think for her first movie, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's really beautiful, and Greta Lee and Tao Yu, they're just really good.
Well, you kind of need that for a movie like this. It's so centered around two people. They need that chemistry, and it needs to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's one of those sort of it's a movie about longing and literally what could have been, maybe and they bring up this idea of this Buddhist idea of so many thousands of lives and so many thousands of incidents, and how connected you were to that person in past lives.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, you know, the idea that maybe it's just not our time this time, maybe next time, you know, sort of thing, like that sort of idea, and I really liked it. I really, really did. It's an odd little romantic movie that I think if you give a chance, you would really enjoy it, and especially if you like that sort of Wong Kar-wai, you know, Hong Kong sort of, you know, 90s Hong Kong love stories, you know, where, you know, for it's going to sound weird, but not a lot happens in those movies. You know what I mean? There's a lot of longing and waiting and you know, really beautifully stylish
Yeah.
sort of scenes of people looking out of windows and stuff, which makes it sound awful.
It doesn't though. To me, that always screams a confident director. Things like that, where you let the scene breathe, give everything time. You know, if you've got a beautiful shot, hold it. Don't cut immediately to the next shot.
Absolutely. There was one particular shot that I loved that was just.
I think the older I get, the more I appreciate that style of filmmaking. You know.
Yeah, and there was a lovely shot of Nora's on this retreat, and she's the first one to arrive at this place they're staying, and she goes to she goes into her room and she goes to sleep, and there's this beautiful shot of her sort of lying on the bed and the open window behind her, and you see this car pulling up, and the guy who's going to be her husband gets out and just sort of walks towards the house, and it's just almost a standard sort of just somebody turning up to a house, but it's so beautiful. It was such a lovely shot. It was, you know, literally just this guy coming into her life through the window sort of thing as she's asleep. You know, he turns up while you were sleeping sort of thing. It was really good, and I really loved it, and I just found it so charming and so well done. Yeah. And I'm hoping she goes on to do more stuff like this, because it was really good, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, that's great.
As I said, it's not going to be for everyone, because it's not a standard love story.
Sure.
But it is a really great movie and a really well done movie, and I really loved it.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah. Past Lives. I will have to, and that's on Netflix. Yeah.
Yes, it's on Netflix.
I'll have to check that out. So, the one movie I have seen, and apologies, as I said, a moving house at the moment. I'm surrounded by boxes, so, you know, did what I could. But I did manage to get to the cinema to see The Iron Claw, film directed by Sean Durkin, a film I've wanted to see. I was very keen on seeing, so I decided it was worth the cinema visit. And in my opinion, it honestly was worth the cinema visit. Starring Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen, Harris Dixon, and well, I mean, it's a who's who. the cast is superb. Lily
Zac
James
Efron's looking like He-Man.
Yeah, Zac Efron. This might be my favorite Zac Efron performance in a film. And the amount of size he put on for this is insane. He's almost unrecognizably massive in this film.
Zac Efron is one of those weird anomalies. He's actually, you know, for one of those sort of like Disney kid type things, you know. Yeah. He started off as one of those sort of.
I find occasionally he really surprises you. You know.
He's actually a really good actor.
He is.
And he surprised me how good he is, considering. Well, I mean, it's kind of mean, but.
Well, no, it's true. You never know with like kid actors and that kind of thing. You never know how it's going to go. And I think he's turned out remarkably well, and he's put in some great performances. But I think here, maybe my favorite performance of his, to be honest. So, Zac Efron in this film plays Kevin Von Erich. Story of the Von Erich brothers. True story, based on. A true story, and it's centered around this group of brothers who are wrestlers. Their father, played by Holt McCallany, and he is superb in this as well. Their father, Jack or Fritz Von Erich, had a dream of becoming like world champion within the territories. Never achieved that, and has felt cheated out of it ever since. And as a result, he has put that pressure on his sons. So he has his own wrestling promotion, and he is determined to have one of his sons become the world champion. He feels like he's owed this NWA championship. He feels like it should come to them. And obviously they explain that in wrestling, it's scripted, so it's not a case of win-win. It's a case of like, hey, if you impress people enough, then you can go, to Japan or whatever, and if you impress people over there, you can come back, and then when they feel you're ready for the title, you will be booked in a match and you will win that match. So Fritz feels like he was always cheated out of it because he felt like he was the best and that people kept him down. So he's put that pressure on his sons. So we've got Zac Efron playing Kevin Von Erich, and he is like, I think he's the... Yeah, so he would be the second son. Their first son died. So it's the second son. And he's the oldest, obviously. And initially, the kind of hopes are pinned on him. But as time goes on, Kevin is pushed to the side. He turns out he's not so good with his mic skills. So then they put all of the emphasis on David, who's one of the younger sons, but he's got loads of charisma on the mic and whatever. Kerry Von Erich ends up training for the Olympics. Obviously that doesn't happen because of the Russia situation. But all of this pressure is heaped on them. This movie is not really, well, it is about wrestling, but it's really about brotherhood. It's about family. It's about, well, kind of abuse in a way, in a way, the way that Fritz treated his sons, and kind of indoctrinated them into this world of wrestling and kind of forced them to do it. Stanley Simons is fantastic as Mike Von Erich, who is like the youngest kid, and he has no interest in wrestling. He's actually a musician in like a rock band. Which he has to hide from his parents. They're very religious, and so he says he's got like, I think they think he's in like a church band or something.
Right.
But he has no interest in wrestling, and as a result, Fritz really looks down on Mike. Fritz doesn't like him, and at one point there's a scene at breakfast where Fritz literally says, "Hey, I can't remember which order he says it, but it's something like, hey, David, that Kevin's my favorite, then Kerry, then you, then Mike. But the rankings can change. You can impress me, and you can work up the ranks of who's my favorite son."
What a thing to say to your kids, eh?
Yeah. Well, one of the most surprising things that this movie does, because I broad strokes was I'm a fan of wrestling growing up, and broad strokes was aware of the story. Certainly I was aware of the tragedy surrounding this family. And one of the things that really surprised me of this movie is that they could have made Fritz Von Erich just a piece of shit, right? And Holt's portrayal could have just been that he was an abusive, horrible man.
Yeah.
This film doesn't do that. He is abusive and he is horrible, but he does love his sons, and he does genuinely. You can see in scenes that he genuinely thinks he's doing right by his sons. He's not, but he thinks he is. His intentions are often selfish, but he also does clearly care for his son. So it's not like black and white. Here's a villainous father.
Yeah.
He does love his sons, and he is trying. Now, obviously, the Von Erich story is full of tragedy. There was suicide. There's bike accidents. Kerry Von Erich lost his foot and continued wrestling with a fake foot, without telling people for a very long time. And very early on, we're introduced to this when Kevin, played by Zac Efron, as I said, he meets Pam Adkison, who is played by Lily James, also tremendous in this film. She's very infatuated with him. She meets him outside of a match, and she immediately is like, this is where we're kind of first introduced to the fact that Kevin's not very charismatic and he doesn't really have very good relationship skills. She basically forces him out on a date because he's incapable of asking her out. But he pretty much says to her almost immediately about the Von Erich curse. And when they have a kid, in fact, he insists that the child's last name be Atkinson instead of Von Erich because of this curse. He doesn't want that curse to be inherited by his sons.
Because that's how curses work.
Yeah, well, I mean, as the film goes on, you do see their youngest son died very young. And then the brothers start to pass away. If you know the story, you know what happens broadly. But through various incidents, the brothers start dying off from different tragedies, and you really feel the loss that this family are going through, and it wouldn't work as well were it not for the relationship that these actors all manage to portray on screen. Like, you believe that they are brothers and that they love each other like more than anything in the world. There's a scene in a diner when I think it's the first date he's on with Pam, where Pam asks Kevin, she's like, where do you see yourself? What do you want from life? Where do you see yourself in 10 years or whatever, that tried and tested question. And he says, I just want to be with my brothers. That's all I want. Just want to be with my brothers. Just want to live with my brothers, be with my brothers. That's all I want. And you really get that from this film. And as the brothers pass away, you really feel that emotion. And Zac Efron is so good at just showing that loss. The whole family feels it, particularly Kerry early on. But yeah, Zac Efron's performance as Kevin, who's just going through loss after loss after loss, but then given that hope of like, oh, now I have children, now I have a child, I've got a wife, and dealing with his father, who, of course, as brothers start dying, he starts insisting on the other brothers taking over. Ultimately, he basically forces Mike into it, who doesn't want to even wrestle. But because I forget who, I think David passes away, then it's down to Mike. Mike's got to come in now because Kerry's going to the Olympics, and Mike's going to have to get involved. Just watching the performances of all of these actors and actresses, superb. Stanley Simons as Mike is tremendous in this film. Just an innocent kid who wants to play music, does not want to be a wrestler, and is kind of forced into it by this father. I will say some of if I had any issues with it, I would say first of all, the direction is superb. The soundtrack is amazing. If you love that period of time, you will love all of the music because it's everything you want. But if I had one criticism of the movie, I would say it's very clear whilst making this, they were like, this story is really dark and we need to lighten the mood a little bit. So as a result, one of the brothers is completely removed from the story because he also died, and I guess they thought that's too many deaths.
Too many deaths.
So we won't do that. And I'm sure people will disagree, it's a minor thing. But there is a scene that I felt, it was a scene where some of the brothers meet in the afterlife. It's a very brief scene. I thought it kind of felt out of place and kind of jumped the shark a bit, and I was a bit like, it's very brief, but I feel like it was like, oh, this story's too dark, we need to give something, so that to me felt a bit awkward. So there's bits where you're like, okay, they're trying to keep this from falling off the cliff of despair, but minor quibbles aside, I thought this was a superb film. The acting by all of the primary and secondary cast are absolutely superb. It's kind of awkward, as you would expect, especially if you know some of the wrestlers. It's you've got Aaron Dean Eisenberg. He's like, hey, come in and be Ric Flair. Like, really? You know, and it's like, he's trying his best, but you know what Ric Flair's like, and you're seeing him do the promo that Ric Flair did, and it's like, this is, it cannot help but be Uncanny Valley kind of weird imitation, right. You know? But, you know, that aside, minor things aside, this is a tremendous story, and I would say, you know, you don't have to be a fan of wrestling. It is not really about the wrestling. It is about the brotherhood. It's about this family, and this family falling apart, and you know, and Kevin trying to find his happiness amongst all of this death, and see the light at the end of the tunnel with his own kids. You know, ultimately ending up with Brothers himself. Yeah, a really, really tremendous movie. I highly, highly recommend it. Not sure how much longer it's going to be in the cinema, but certainly when it comes to streaming and when it's available, I absolutely recommend it. It's certainly the best film I've seen this year so far. So yeah, absolutely recommend The Iron Claw.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I wanted to see. I thought the trailers looked really good.
Yeah, it's superb.
Things about it.
Yeah,
and I do know, I'm not the full story, but I know of the family and
I think most people that are aware of wrestling know the story of the Von Erichs. Like, they know that most of them died under horrific circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do really believe by the end of the movie, you're like, yeah, maybe this Von Erich curse thing maybe is real, you know? Like, at the start you're like, oh, that seems a bit much, Kevin. But by the end of the movie you're like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, tremendous movie. I highly recommend it. And like I said, not just for wrestling fans. You know, it's not quite on the level of The Wrestler, but very similar, where it's like, well, there's wrestling in it. It's not really about wrestling. And the same here. This is about family and loss.
The Wrestler's a fucking amazing movie.
The Wrestler's an amazing movie. This is a great movie, and it's, you can't really compare the two, but they're very similar in that the story is not about wrestling. Obviously, The Wrestler was about obsession more than anything. And you know, the injuries and whatnot resulting from wrestling. This is about family and loss. So yeah, highly recommended. What else have you watched?
I have also watched The Retirement Plan.
The Retirement Plan.
Yeah, directed by Tim Brown.
This was one I didn't even know existed. See, this is the thing. Nicolas Cage does so many movies these days. I'm like, oh, he's done another one? Okay.
So, it's Nick Cage, Ashley Greene, Ron Perlman, Jackie Earle Haley, Ernie Hudson, Race Byers, Lynn Whitefield. It's got a pretty good cast, to be honest. So, basically, we're introduced to Ashley and her boyfriend, or no, it was her husband, actually, who basically have just ripped off Donnie, who is Jackie Earle Haley's character. But it goes wrong, and they've stolen some sort of drive of him, and they're going to go, not exactly on the run, but they've got they realise that they're in trouble, that it's gone wrong. The guy that was with them has died, and they need to get rid of this. They need to hide this drive and get out of the country. So, get out of the country. They've got a young daughter, who basically, doesn't know any of this this stuff, but knows something's up with her parents, and the husband says, look, send you and our daughter, you're going to have to go. You've got somewhere to go. You know where to go. And you've got to go to basically the Cayman Islands, because that's where your dad is. It's like, I haven't seen my dad for 20 years, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, okay, well, we're going to do that anyway. So because of, her husband gets picked up by the bad guys, and when they're at the airport, the bad guys turn up because they find out that she's trying to go. So she stays behind, but she sends her daughter over. And when her daughter reaches Cayman Islands, she's going to find her grandpa, who she finds unconscious on the beach, and obviously hanging a very hungover Nick Cage, who didn't even know she existed. Sort of, well, kind of knows she existed, but didn't really know enough about her. And he's like, "Who the fuck are you? Why are you like bothering me? I'm your granddaughter. Okay, fine." She shows a picture of her mum. She's like, "Oh, that is my daughter. Wow, she's all grown up," sort of thing. And he says, "Oh, well, what's you doing?" She's like, "I think my mum's in trouble." And then basically you get the whole Ron Perlman is sent over to get the drive off the daughter and find out. But you obviously, Nick Cage he's a retired CIA guy, basically a retired hitman. And from there, it's like Nick Cage beating people up and being an old man and people making cracks about him being an old guy and him playing on it. And
we went through a phase of that being exhausting, but I feel like we got through that phase. We're all right now.
So this movie's pretty bad.
Aw. They can't all be hits. He does so many. The
funniest thing is it's like Nick Cage and Ron Perlman. I think they're in other movies. They seem to be in a different movie to the other people that are in it.
Okay, right, yeah.
Because they're doing pretty well with their part.
I think Nick Cage and Ron Perlman, I've never seen them phone anything in.
No.
Like, they always put the effort in, you know?
Yeah, Nick Cage has been in some fucking awful movies.
But he always brings his A game.
Yeah.
He always strikes me. Nick Cage just
list of terrible movies.
Nick Cage just strikes me as one of those people who just loves the craft.
Yeah,
he's like, even if I'm in crap, I just love acting and I'm gonna do it.
I saw this interview with him where he was going through. I think it was like one of those Vanity Fair things where they go through his career.
I saw that. That's really good. That
There's
Vanity
a great
Fair
thing.
one.
He
Yeah.
talks about his performance in.
Talks about Con Air and stuff. It's great.
Moonstruck.
Yeah.
And he's talking about his hand and all that sort of stuff in the scene where he's going, "My hand, I lost my hand," and stuff. And he's talking about how he got that from Rotwang in Metropolis.
Yeah.
And you're like, what other fucking actor talks about fucking getting performance tips, from taking performance characters
from Metropolis,
characters from fucking like black and white movie, from the 20s,
silent
30s.
movie,
talks about that sort of stuff.
No, it's amazing.
It's so great. I love that he does that sort of thing. He got into acting because he loves the craft.
Loves it, and he still does. You see so many of these aging actors that you can tell just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And they're just doing it for a paycheck, or they're just doing it, just for money, really.
Yeah.
Or out of boredom, but they don't really want to put the effort in. I have seen Nick Cage in some real shit.
Some real bottom of the barrel.
But he's
stuff.
always just putting 110% into it,
Yeah, he's
and Ron Perlman's much the same. Ron Perlman turns up in a lot of crap, and he'll often be putting in the effort.
The Cage chose to do this because it was a chance to work with Perlman, who he worked with previously, and they became friends. So it feels very much like, hey, let's go down to the Cayman Islands and have a holiday. And
while we're there.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
He just kind of feels like he's having fun, just being this old guy who, is a retired hitman.
Is it bad that we've reached the age now where a lot of the actors I see in movies, because most of my heroes are old, I just like to see them happy. I'm just like, oh, that movie was crap, but at least he had a good time. I'm just glad to see he's happy.
He sort of looks like he's having fun. He's like, he's reacting to sort of things in an amusing way. It feels like, did you ever watch Burn Notice?
Yes, yeah.
It feels like an episode of Burn Notice.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the sort of like a pilot of a TV series. It's very much. I mean, even the end, it's sort of like, hey, he could come back for. It looks like they're setting up for a sequel. It's like, please don't, because
don't do it,
because this was terrible. But the fight scenes are pretty bad. And Cage isn't the, he's not the sort of, he's never been that big fightery guy.
No.
He's not a martial artist or a.
No, I mean, he did the Con Air thing, but that was very much.
He's certainly done action movies, but not.
But he's never been a martial artist. He's never claimed to be.
Yeah,
he.
And sometimes some of the sort of hits look a bit like,
because even in Con Air, doesn't Malkovich say like you're a useful mammal or something like that? That pretty much sums him up. He is just there's no finesse to the fighting.
There's a nice little thing with the little girl who's sort of reading Othello, and Ron Perlman, he's captured her sort of thing. He's got hold of her, and they're talking about Othello, and then he recites part of Othello, and she hasn't got there yet, and she's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It's Othello. You're reading it," and she's like, "Oh, I don't think I've got that far yet." And she says it's really hard to get into and stuff. And he sort of explains his life as Oliver Twist. He says, "Have you heard Oliver Twist?" He says, I'm basically Oliver Twist. I was an orphan. I got found by thing, and he sort of, that's kind of cool. I quite like that. It was a nice little exchange, and that's what I mean by those two are in a different movie. They're sort of classing this movie up. It's not good. It really isn't. And it there's so many cliches and so many and the bad guy is this she's supposed to be really, I think she's supposed to be really menacing. There's a scene where she's got this woman who her and her husband have tried to rip her off.
Right.
And I think she's an accountant or something. And it's obviously there to show that she's an evil character and how bad she is, but it just makes her look really duff, and it's like this scene, we don't need this scene. It really does. You just tell us that she's evil. We don't.
Yeah.
Don't, because she just doesn't look like she's threatening at all. She's just she looks like a fucking lawyer. It's really bad. Oh god, it's so awful. It's it feels like it's too long, even though it isn't.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's the worst movie ever.
No.
And they're doing what they can with what it is, but it's just a very bad movie. I got some fun out of it. It was just fun watching Nick Cage, being this old guy, this old assassin guy, and the Ron Perlman bit was great, and
yeah.
Christ, Jackie Earl Haley is the sort of, but he's a bad guy as well, and he's just him like pacing about and shouting at his men, really. So he's not got an awful lot to do. And Ernie Hudson's the sort of, hey, this is my friend who he knows who I am, and it's kind of like Ernie Hudson doing a role that he's done millions of times. It's just I'm just the reliable friend who sort of turns up and helps them out a bit, and it's like, oh god, this is so bad. It's just, honestly, it just feels like a really bad sort of Burn Notice knockoff. It was, there was fun in it, and it's not the best, but I honestly couldn't recommend it. Unless other than like,
unless you're desperate.
Cage,
yeah.
Enthusiasts, you'll get some out of it.
But the thing is, you don't need to, because Nick Cage produces stuff at such a rate that the next Cage movie will come along next week, probably.
Yeah, so. I still haven't seen the Dream one yet.
I quite enjoyed the one I watched towards the end of last year.
Yeah, the one where
Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah.
That again, not the best movie, but Nick Cage just
all of these movies came out, roughly. There's like four Cage. Oh, that and Renfield. Yes. They all came out around the same sort of time.
Yeah.
And I loved Renfield. I thought Renfield was great.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I didn't. I don't think I liked it as much as you did, but I did enjoy it.
No, I thought he made it. He was.
Oh, he was great. Dracula. I mean, he was fantastic in it.
He was a really good Dracula, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a great movie. I can't recommend it. It's, unless you're a Cage fan, or a Perlman fan,
Yeah.
I'd give this a miss. It's
Fair
not great.
enough. Well, the question is, did you leave the best until last?
No, I did not.
Okay. So, what do you want to talk about Joyride?
So, Joyride.
Oh man, it got worse.
Currently on Amazon.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't say worse. It's so basic. So here we have.
I've got to be honest with you.
Yes.
I don't want to assume a movie is bad from the poster alone, but I probably wouldn't have even clicked on it based on the poster, you know.
I kind of I saw the trailer. I thought, oh, that looks.
I
bad.
haven't seen the trailer.
I'm going to give
so,
it a go.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was kind of in the mood for a sort of a comedy.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Yeah.
So basically, you've got the beginning of this is really good and really funny.
Okay.
So you basically, it's like the Chinese family turn up to a town that's clearly all white people. They're I think the places that it's called like White Hill or something.
Mm.
And they bring their daughter Lolo to the park to sort of her to play. And there's like all these people staring at them, and they're like, "Oh my god, we've come. This is terrible. You know, what have we done? There's so many white people." And this white couple, come up to them and like, "Hey, are you Chinese?" And they're like, "Yes." Like, "Hey, can your daughter play with our daughter?" And you're like, "This is fucking weird." And they're like, "Yeah, why?" And their daughter comes out behind them, and they have a little Chinese daughter,
Right.
Which they've adopted, and the two little girls like look at each other. Audrey and Lolo look at each other, and they goes, "Hey, do you want to play on the swings?" And like, "Yeah, sure." So they go off to sort of play on the swings, and this kid there that goes, "Hey, no ching chongs on the swings."
Jesus.
And Lolo goes, "Fuck you," and punches him in the face.
Awesome.
And that was honestly.
I mean, that is funny. Yeah.
Funniest moment in the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was such a great opening. It just decks this kid, and it's like that was brilliant.
Well, that's a lesson learned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then, basically, time passes, and you're now Audrey is now this high flying lawyer, and Lolo is a artist who she wants people to be sexually aware and to bring to talk about have conversations about their genitals and stuff. So she's this artist, and she's got this design for a playground, which is like based on the playground they used to play in, but it's all like
phallic
penises and vaginas, and yeah, it's all and she's got like a one of those lucky cats, the lucky cat with the paws that move. She's got one of those with a tongue that pokes out, and stuff like that. And she's basically living in this tiny little house in Audrey's garden. And she's going to be going to. Audrey has got this this job where she's going to be going to China to sort of expand their company, and she's going to be sent on this sort of mission. Even though she doesn't speak Chinese, so she's going to take Lolo with her because Lolo's, speaks fluent Chinese, and she's going to be her translator sort of thing. And they're also going to end up taking they're going to meet Kat there, who's played by Stephanie Sue from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah,
the daughter in that.
Mm-hmm.
She's this actress who was her college roommate, and Lolo hates her, and then there's Lolo's cousin called Deadeye, who is just one of those characters that's sort of mental. She's a sort of Adam Sandler character, the worst example of an Adam Sandler character. She's awful. She's obviously because of who she is. She's got these sort of mental problems and things, and there's a couple of times where you sort of feel sorry for her because she explains that why she's weird. So they're going to go to China, and when they're while they're there, they're thinking maybe finding. Well, Lola wants to find Audrey's mum. You know, so that was where she was adopted from. So they're going to go there, and it becomes this sort of road trip. They they end up getting thrown off a train, and their wallets are their passports are stolen, and they have to try and get across the country in weird ways. And then they discover later on they have to they want to leave the country and go somewhere else, and they come up with this plan that Deadeye says, "Hey, do you know who doesn't have to go through border check-ins and stuff? K-pop bands." And like, what? K-pop bands? We can be a K-pop band. And you're like, in no fucking way are you guys gonna pass as a fucking K-pop band ever. You're just not. There's some like really ridiculous stuff, and basically, you know, it's the sort of, oh, you know, we've got to find our mum and her mum, and we've got to try and keep this company happy, and it's all right. It was I did laugh a few times. There were some really you know, funny bits in it. The characters are okay. It kind of weirdly, it felt like one of those sort of 90s sort of sex comedies. You know, There's some real sort of one of the characters has
like
got
you said, very Adam Sandler-y.
Yeah, one of the characters has got a tattoo on her bits, and she's been going out with this guy for 3 years, and they haven't had sex yet, and her boyfriend is like really religious,
right?
And it turns out that her vagina is basically a tattooed devil. So she's been hiding this, and you know, obviously that it goes wrong.
I was going to say that is eventually going to become an issue.
Yeah, exactly. You know where it's going. It was okay. It's not the worst movie. I think I probably enjoyed it slightly more than The Retirement Plan. It's not the best example of it, but it's certainly not the fucking worst. It was kind of, I will say, I'm probably not the target audience for it. It's definitely more aimed at a female audience, which is obvious, you know.
Well, of course, yeah. That's fine.
But I wonder even if that would a female audience would find it is you know, that is entertaining as that. But you know, the Sherry Curlow plays Lolo and Ashley Park who play Audrey. They're great actually. They're not terrible. They're doing what they have to do. They do feel like awful characters. You know, that she's, you know, Audrey's pretty selfish. Lolo's selfish in a different way. Kat, the actress, is awful. You know, they're not exactly the most endearing of characters. So you're already kind of on a wrong foot. You know,
yeah.
With the best of these sort of movies, like I don't know, fucking American Pie or something. You know, you have to have at least a couple of characters that you're rooting for, that you want, that you have to be with, because Stifler is awful. He's a terrible, terrible character. Not as in he's a terrible character. He's a great character.
A terrible person.
But
yes.
He's a terrible person. But you kind of want to watch him, you know. And the other characters, you know, like is it Dave, the main guy? You know, he's actually, his embarrassment is fun because he's a nice kid, you know. These main are not likable. I certainly fucking didn't find them likable, which is kind of it's to its detriment. So it's funny in parts. Sadly, it never gets funnier than the opening. That opening was perfect. absolutely that opening absolutely killed me, and then it sort of just sort of slid off as it went along, and you know what's coming, and you know what where you get where it's going, and it was just a bit. It wasn't a slog, but it did feel like, okay, I want this movie to be over now. And again, it's not a long movie; it's only an hour and a half, which I was very fucking glad of in the end. But it was sort of okay, get to the part where they're not friends anymore, and then get to the part where they are friends again. Okay, yep, there we go. So it's a sort of standard comedy, sex comedy sort of thing. It's okay. It's not great, but I guess the thing is that these sort of things aren't being made right now. There's a sort of prudishness about movies at the moment.
That's true.
And it was nice that they were doing that. It was that I did appreciate that it was, it felt like it was trying to capture the spirit of those movies, and it may not have done it 100%, but it was okay. It was all right. I mean, I can't say I'd recommend it, but it's if you want a sort of slightly duff comedy, buddy comedy movie, then yeah, go for it. But it's not good. It wasn't a great movie at all.
Oh well, you can't win them all.
No.
Well, that is everything. It's a shorter episode this week because, like I said, moving house and stuff. So I haven't had an awful lot of time. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we disappear?
Just a couple of things that caught my eye.
Sure.
Sticking with Nick Cage.
Mm-hmm.
This one only because I liked the character. Nicolas Cage is in talks to play the live-action version of Spider-Man Noir.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
It's like, wow, you mean Sony's actually doing something that we want to see?
Well, they did.
Cool.
They did they've done.
No, but I'm just
for every NAF thing they do, they have been doing a couple of good things. Like they did. Well, I guess Marvel did No Way Home or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And there's the Spider-Verse ones. They're good.
Yeah.
So for every Morbius or Madam Web, they offset it with something reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of the best thing about the first. Well, one of the best things about the first movie.
Oh, he was tremendous in that role.
I loved the Spider-Man Noir. It was great. So yeah,
that could be really fun.
That could be good.
And you can tell they're clearly, ever since No Way Home, whatever it's called, that was clearly going to be the multiverse direction was obviously the way they were going, because the Spider-Verse movies have done really well as well, which is exactly the same thing. So
and the other little thing that I saw was Luc Besson is going to be doing Dracula.
Okay.
So far he's got Caleb Landry Jones and Christoph Waltz.
I'm not sure how that will turn out, but I'm curious.
Well, so Caleb Landry Jones is going to be Dracula.
Yeah.
My guess is Waltz is going to be Van Helsing, maybe.
Do you know I watched Dracula yesterday? The Jack Palance Dracula, which I haven't watched for a long time.
Yeah, I might have to watch that again. I haven't seen that for a long time. That's pretty good Dracula, actually.
It is, yeah. No, it's fine. It was one of those that I never ever watched, so I was like, oh, I haven't watched that for like years now. I don't think.
So the weird thing is it's going to be looking at like the early stuff of Vlad, as it were.
Okay.
And it's going to be he's describing it as a love story.
Okay.
It's like, okay.
Well, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Luc Besson when he's on form.
Well,
tremendous.
That's exactly why normally I wouldn't bother to sort of like, oh yeah, another Dracula thing. It's like, but Luc Besson.
It's gonna be interesting either way.
Yeah.
Even if it's bad, it'll be an interesting film. So.
It's gonna. Yeah. I mean. I'm still not sure about the Love Tale thing. because you know,
well,
we admittedly, you know, the last portrayal of Dracula we kind of assumed was the one from Renfield, and he was pretty monstrous in that. So that we have had a monstrous Dracula recently, but I don't know, the love angle works, well, for me anyway, so well in Bram Stoker's.
Yes.
That anything that's tried to go for that angle since hasn't got it quite right.
Fair enough.
So we'll see. I don't know. You know, I've got a lot of time for Besson, so
yeah, me too.
And the Kid of Landry Jones is pretty cool. I mean, he's he was in Byzantium, and I fucking hated his character in Byzantium. Love that movie. Yeah. Hated his character in Byzantium. I just wanted her to eat him. Just fucking eat him. He's annoying. Eat him. But no. But he's a great actor, and I'm interesting to see how he'll play Dracula. So
yeah, I'm curious. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, other than that, that's about it.
Well, what are we doing next time?
We are going to be doing With Nell and I.
With Nell and I. Great movie. Really excited to do that one.
Yeah.
So yes, we will be back next week with Nell and I. But until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you next time.